Amber's on a break, she's on a fast track to being sued by her own aunt, and she's staying quiet while sneakily trying to get other reaction channels' content scrubbed from the internet. So it's about time to make some deep dives. And today we're talking more about the most recent crash out as it relates to the Emily portion of the meltdown. With the sudden influx of views and increased watch time compared to what her videos would typically garner, add to that the revenue from the added memberships and super chats, Amber has definitely made a good chunk of money to hold her over for the month. But in the process, she's dug herself so far into her own grave that her only option really at this point is to dip out, as she did. This whole thing was set off when Amber caught wind that Emily would be going to a reaction channel to spill the beans about the missing cat situation. But then Amber preemptively went to try to clear her name, which spectacularly backfired on her. And that was actually the topic of my last video on her. So if you want to watch that, that will be linked above and below, but it's not necessary for the purpose of today's video. And back then, when I made my deep dive on the Rarity scandal, I had felt that that issue was overshadowed by the more recent and chaotic, messy breakup between Emily and Amber. And now, even that drama has been entirely eclipsed by the more recent drama of Amber's falling out with her aunt Tammy, who, by the way, has been giving us some juicy details that we never knew we needed.
You didn't meet me at 17. You met me when you were 14, when I went to California for the first time after 16 years. Remember you getting the pot of spaghetti out of the refrigerator and using the really huge utensil, taking big scoops out of the pot onto your plate, where your dad said, "I think that's enough, Amber." That's my first memory of you, and you still continue to pile on your plate.
And on top of all these petty little things that Tammy has come out with, she also announced that she's now suing Amber for defamation and slander, which I don't even know if I want to get into the reasons for that. Definitely not in today's video. Let me know in the comments below if you want a part 3 to cover the Tammy drama as well. But for now, I'm just gonna let it stew until we see the court case. Oh, and on top of all this, Amber's lies regarding her longtime ex Casey have also now resurfaced, with Amber now finally claiming that she was never touched by her ex Casey.
Why was ex-girlfriend unhealthy for you? She was abusive in every way towards me. Notice how she keeps repeating that? Physically, sexually, mentally, emotionally.
RAPE, rain and petals, eavesdrop. I used the wrong word. Rain and petals, eavesdrop. I used the wrong word. I have been sexually by 4 people in my life. Destiny, Becky, Feline, and Emily. I was never touched in that way by Casey. I want to make that very fucking clear. And for those of you who are like, hashtag clear Casey's name, it's because of my aunt. And guess what? Isn't that slander? Isn't that slander? Because what happened with Casey is real. What happened with Casey is true. Everything I said about Casey is 100% true. And my aunt is saying the opposite of that. So wouldn't that be slander?
So yeah, the scandals just keep getting bigger and messier for Amber. However, I want to take a breath, take a pause, because I feel like all the details with the Emily breakup situation, just like the whole Rarity situation, really just got brushed past far too quickly. There were so many accusations flying about, and so much of Amber's true character really shone in these early stages of her meltdown. We watched her cycle through DARVO techniques, practically textbook examples.
But you know that I'm not a narcissist. You know that I'm not. You know that. But the behaviors that you demonstrate, whether that be publicly or behind closed doors, shows textbook narcissist behavior. And it scares me. You scare me.
And we watched her flip-flop between trying to portray herself as the innocent victim to flipping and showing herself as the vile aggressor, sometimes within the same live stream. So today we're zeroing in on this next topic of the great crash out of 2025, the breakup with Emily. We're going to go accusation by accusation and dissect exactly what went down, the name calling, the cheating, the betrayal, as well as the yelling and screaming and kicking and shoving. And we'll dig into what really caused Amber to spiral this hard. As I mentioned, this whole mess started because Amber got word that Emily would be going to a reaction channel, Mr. Snowflake, to spill some tea. But before Emily could, Amber, in all her wisdom, decided to try to get ahead of the situation before Emily had a chance to say anything. Last episode, we talked about how Amber essentially shot herself in the foot over and over again when she tried to preemptively re-explain how her cat Rarity went missing. Well, she did the exact same thing when trying to get ahead of whatever Emily was about to say. Without Emily even mentioning anything about or violence, Amber decided to bring up a few situations that sounded particularly damning. To me, the most, well, I don't want to say shocking thing, but the most troubling thing was when Amber brought up a story unprompted, of how she pushed or grabbed or maybe fell on Emily.
And during that whole fiasco, so her room, like, I'm not gonna lie, we both like have ADHD and ADHD piles, so her room would get like, she would have her pile of dirty clothes, and she also had a rug and like a huge dog bed, and then I had Twinkie's dog bed, so it was a very crowded place. And during the frantic of it all, I remember I tripped over her rug, I landed into her, she fell on the ground, and I'm like, as that's happening, I'm trying to get her, like, as she's falling, I go to grab her off the ground. I will never forget this moment ever, because I'm telling you, I called my mom hysterical. She's telling me, um, yeah, Grace, because anytime that I would start crying, she would leave the room completely. That's what I had to deal with. Someone who did not care about my feelings at all. So, so when I tripped over the rug and then I landed into her and she was falling, I went to grab her. It didn't work out very well. She still landed on the floor. And then she started like hysterically, how come you pushed me? I'm like, what is actually happening? So she like, I don't know. It was this whole fucking thing. I was like, this cannot be real right now. This genuinely cannot. Like, I have never been so gaslit into thinking that the sky was actually the ground and the ground was actually the sky.
Now, let's talk about this because there's a lot going on and a lot of red flags right off the bat. And again, this is before Emily has a chance to say anything about this situation or event. First, let's notice the padding in Amber's story. We get a whole detour of Amber rambling on about these ADHD piles, which I guess Amber has that now too. I think that's a new one. But she talks about these piles of dirty laundry, the dog bed, the rug. It's a very crowded place, and all this is before we actually get to the point of the whole story. All this extra detail is because Amber is trying to paint this as a more believable or even inevitable scenario. Also, I think it's important to note here how Amber is preemptively framing Emily as this cold and distant partner. She would leave the room whenever I cried. That's what I had to deal with. All this language that Amber uses here, saying that Emily was hysterical, that she was being gaslit, that Amber just couldn't believe this was real. Amber's painting herself as a victim of this unsupportive girlfriend and trying to undermine Emily's credibility before Emily can even speak and before Amber even says anything about how this whole situation went down. Additionally, instead of centering around what happened to Emily, the story quickly pivots to how it made Amber feel. There was no detail or concern over how Emily may have felt or whether or not she was hurt or scared. To Amber, it was laughable, mockable.
Started like hysterically, how come you pushed me? I'm like,
Emily hadn't said anything about this event yet. So why was Amber bringing this up? Clearly, Amber knew that this whole situation would be something that Emily would want to bring up. And Amber probably knew that Emily's version wasn't going to look too good for her. So before Emily could even say a thing, Amber started using a manipulation tactic that has been very popular with her lately: DARVO. DARVO stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. Amber first denies that any intentional harm was ever done to Emily. It was just an accident. She had tripped over this ADHD pile. It was inevitable, really. Then she attacks Emily's credibility by making her sound hysterical, mocking her, and making her sound irrational. And finally, throughout the story, Amber is reversing the roles to make herself seem like the real victim. She was the one being gaslit. She was the one bawling and being so coldly ignored. And it was actually Emily who was the real offender. And oh yeah, before she started the story, she offhandedly mentioned that Emily had actually kicked Amber. So actually it was Emily who was the one being physical before this even started.
so I was following her also into the bathroom. I have a bad habit of like following, saying, don't leave the room, we need to talk about this. Like, that's a very bad very bad part of me that I will say. And I'm 100% accountable in that. Very bad of me. Um, so When I went to go walk into the bathroom, she kicked me. She's tall. She's taller than I am. She's like 5'7". She kicked me really hard in my stomach. Really hard. That is the only time that something like physical like that happened. And it was like right in my hernia, so that like really scared me, I will say that.
First off, we do have text messaging showing that even back on the date of this big fight, November 17th, Emily was denying that she ever kicked Amber. And now I can't trust either of them at this point, but I did want to just mention that Emily has gone on to deny over and over again ever kicking Amber. So Amber drops this claim of Emily kicking her in the gut just once, very passingly during her live stream. It's very casual, almost like a passing detail in the greater story. And to me, this is a huge red flag. If Amber really was kicked in the gut enough to scare her and hit her hernia, wouldn't you think that she'd have a bit more to say about it? Amber is the type to go on and on for months talking about a twisted ankle. But oh, your girlfriend with the soft and gentle love kicks you in the stomach, and it's just like, oh yeah, that scared me. Apparently, the more important detail to Amber was that she was feeling ignored by Emily. And even after apparently being kicked in the stomach by Emily, Amber continues to follow Emily around, refusing to let Emily get away from this argument. The next major red flag is Amber framing her actions as a bad habit. This admitted pattern of behavior from Amber, where she is physically blocking Emily from leaving a room during conflict, is actually really concerning and controlling behavior. Amber calling it just a bad habit makes it sound trivial, and her saying that she's 100% accountable is just a hollow statement without any deeper reflection or acknowledgement of the harm that it does to the other person. She doesn't explore why this is bad or what she's doing to change. She just makes a quick "I admit it" statement and moves on to the topic that's more important to her. The way Emily made Amber feel by refusing to baby her when Amber threw a temper tantrum and started bawling. During the tell-all with Mr. Snowflake, Emily told a very different story when it came to this incident. According to Emily, during their fight, Emily told Amber that she was going to leave the room. And then Amber grabbed onto Emily's arm, digging her nails in to the point of drawing blood. And Amber had something to say about this accusation, and she was so happy to show what she called proof of her side of the story.
Bitch, I figured it out! Oh my god, suck my ass. I've never been more excited in my life. Sorry, I just got way too excited. So I'm gonna show you the first photo that she sent me, okay? So this is original photo, okay? And remember, there's gouges and blood, okay? Remember that part. This is her arm. This is her arm, okay? Keep in mind she's wearing a maroon shirt, okay? And then look at what she sends me a couple days later, because she forgot that she took that photo and sent it to me. This is from a few days later. Keep that in mind. In this photo, you're gonna see these weird marks that she created herself. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? She faked nail marks days later.
So first, I want to point out something here that already tells me that Amber is a big fat liar. Initially, a couple days prior to her posting this response live stream to Emily, Amber had described this weird, makes no sense, grabbing and falling sort of situation. But during her story, she did describe attempting to grab onto Emily, apparently to stop her from falling. But she did admit to grabbing onto her.
So when I tripped over the rug and then I landed into her and she was falling, I went to grab her. It didn't work out very well. She still landed on the floor.
But now she's doing the most to just deny. She never grabbed onto Emily. Why is Amber denying this when she already admitted to attempting to grab onto Emily? Shouldn't she instead be saying that, this is a lie because I wasn't doing it to harm, I was doing it, to prevent falling? That would make more sense, right? But now, instead, everything is to disprove these images. It never happened. She never grabbed on. There were never gouges. There was never blood.
Didn't you guys hear what she said in Snowflake's fucking thing? That she was bleeding? Bitch, where?
Now, instead, it's all about disproving the images. The gouges and blood were never there. The photos were faked. Why is she so quick to change her story already? And let's talk about those photos for a minute here. Amber showed 2 photos there. One that she claims to be the original, and later a screenshot which she claimed to have been taken on a completely different day. But both of those were time-stamped for November 17th. And yeah, that photo could have been taken earlier, and then the screen capture wasn't taken until the 17th. But we know that the big fight was on the 17th, the same night that Rarity went missing. So these photos, the screenshots, everything that was timestamped to November 17th, that means that these photos could only have been taken on or before their big fight. So I guess it's possible that these were from completely different days, but that would mean that there was another big fight where Emily was also accusing Amber of digging her nails in and leaving gouges. So that doesn't look too good either. And the reason that Amber wants to say that these are from completely different days is because she's trying to allege that Emily went back and made the gouge marks on herself. Which, first off, is a bit weird, because why would Emily send this to Amber if not to say, hey, look at what you've done? But I don't know. For the sake of argument, let's continue on moving past that detail and the detail of the dates not lining up. Because just look at this photo for a minute, and now just bear with me. I know these photos are terrible because, well, Amber doesn't understand how to screen share, so this is a screen capture of Amber screen capturing. But anyway, there are some very faint marks in the photos. In this first one, you can see like a little bit of a bruise, maybe some redness, and like maybe a dot of blood. And then in this next one that Amber shares, there are some faint nail marks on Emily's arm. And I know this is going to be a stretch because of how bad the photo quality is, but to me, this photo kind of sort of proves that Emily could not have made this mark on herself. To me, these photos sort of look like the nail is curved upwards, so like upwards on Emily's arm like this, but with the biggest nail mark likely from the index finger being furthest away from the elbow. And that combination is just not possible to do on yourself. It would need to be left hand to left arm. But again, this is a long shot because these photos are terrible quality and the gouges aren't that deep anyway. But yeah, that's just my conspiracy there. In any case, Amber's main defense that these 2 photos were from completely different days is verifiably false. They were both taken on or before their big fight on November 17th. Also, it's really important to keep in mind that this story that Amber is now spinning is very suspicious given that her prior story did include her grabbing on to Emily. Suddenly, that storyline is completely dropped. She never grabbed Emily. And finally, Amber tries to say that, well, Emily was claiming that there were these deep gouge marks and blood left on her, and you can see in the photos, there's like nothing there. It was so minor. So it's not nearly as severe as Emily is making it out to be. But to me, that's really not the point here. Allegedly, Amber grabbed Emily hard enough to scare her, and Emily would have probably felt threatened by these actions. Any actual bruises or marks is kind of irrelevant. The intent of the action doesn't really matter if the outcome is leaving your girlfriend feeling scared and threatened by you. Amber never once acknowledges that her actions could have scared Emily or made Emily feel unsafe, even if it wasn't Amber's intent to intimidate or harm Emily. So it's really not taking accountability if she's not acknowledging the harm that she has caused. And now, I'm not a fan of Emily by any means. We will go over that in a bit here. But Amber has even admitted to knowing that Emily has dealt with a case of very serious domestic abuse in the past.
One thing that I know to be true is that Emily was held at gunpoint. I do know that to be true. Like, it's literally in court documents. That's not a lie. That's something that did happen.
It is so wild to me that Amber could have behaved in the way that she admitted to behaving while apparently knowing Emily's past. And even in hindsight, looking back to the way that she acted, Amber still can't acknowledge how harmful her behavior was. And I do want to mention here too that this does not seem to be an isolated incident. As many of you I'm sure are familiar with, Amber's ex Casey also described an incident where Amber had grabbed onto their arm and dug her nails in.
3-4 months after we started living together, we were up one night. I don't remember why we argued. I don't. But she grabbed my arm with her nails. First time. Any physical that was negative. And I remember that clearly. It shocked me.
And now, of course, Amber has never admitted or acknowledged any harm done in her relationship with her ex, Casey. According to Amber, she was the victim in that relationship too. And actually, we have another historical case of violence in Amber's past. As another example of Amber's violent tendencies, back in the Destiny era, we have the now infamous Code Red incident, where Destiny claimed that Amber threw a pop can at them.
And she was just like throwing a big just fit. I don't know how else to describe it. She was crying, and I know it was a Code Red Mountain Dew in my hand. I would try to walk out of the house, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna go. So, and because we were already arguing, I was like, I don't want to be around you anyway right now. Like, we were arguing. I wanted to go see my mom. She starts screaming at me from the sliding glass doorway, saying that she's gonna harm herself if I leave, and I don't know, just all this stuff, you know, just going nuts. Then I was like, no, you won't. You know, I said, that's not something to play around with. Just let me go see my mom. And she starts like coming at me. So I get in my car and I leave the can on my top of my car, and I close the door real quick and I lock the door, and she's like telling me to get out, all this stuff, and she ends up throwing the can at my car. Made me mad. And I want to say I ended up not going. I don't think I did. I'm like 98% sure I did not go to my mom's.
The Code Red Mountain Dew situation, that did not happen, and I will swear that up and down.
She will swear to you that this didn't happen. I've talked to her about it before, and she swears it didn't happen. So I don't know why she thinks that, but why would I make this up?
I have said over and over that that did not happen. That is not how the events played out. And I will stand by that, and I will forever stand by that, because I don't get physical with people. I'm not going to throw things at somebody.
She threw a glass cup at my mom.
Amber denies that this Code Red incident ever happened, but given what literally every ex-partner of Amber's has now come out to say about her, I definitely believe that an Amber tantrum includes throwing shit around. And if something that Amber throws happens to hit someone, well, then they were just in the way, and they caused her to react this way anyway. And actually, something very telling happened in one of Amber's initial live streams covering the meltdown. After Amber tried to claim that she'd never hit any past partner, someone sent her a message, essentially trying to make a fat joke, trying to say that Amber wouldn't have been able to hit someone due to her size.
I have never hit Emily. I have never hit Emily ever. I never hit Beck. I never hit who else have I been in a relationship with? Holy Destiny, never hit Crystal. The list can go on and on. If you could, you would. Your body doesn't allow. Huh? You saying if I could hit someone, I would? Okay. So are you saying I can throw this at someone's head? Like, I could take this and throw it? I'm just not a physically person.
Amber was clearly trying to defend herself in some way here, but it was such a strange defense. Initially, it seemed like she was really offended that somebody had made a fat joke at her expense. But she basically confirmed that, no, I'm very capable of physical abuse. But then she reassures us that she would never do that. She's just not that type of person. That's not very convincing, especially considering what Emily has revealed about their relationship and what past partners have come out to say about Amber. And this topic of Amber throwing things around would actually be brought up again by Emily when describing their big fight on November 17th. According to Emily, Amber was throwing things at her. And during her reaction live stream, Amber was big mad at this accusation.
Whew, that was the first time she got physical with me. She threw things at me. What did I throw at you? You know what? Let me go right here. What did I throw at you, actually?
Just a little side note here, in case you are not fully caught up, Amber was texting Emily throughout her live stream. And that there was actually Amber texting Emily asking her what she threw at her.
She threw things at me. All it does is take 5 words to make someone seem like a real bitch. I didn't throw a thing at you, Emily. Oh, she replied. The water bottle that was on my dresser. Oh, I threw a water bottle on your dresser. Okay, let me go back to the text message from last night where you said that I did not throw it at you. Here it is. You know when you picked up the water bottle to throw at me? All I did was pick it up. I didn't throw it at you. And then here it goes. Where did I respond? Oh, and then you said, so when you picked it up and raised it like you were gonna throw it, what was that? That is what you said right there. So did I throw it or not?
I actually cannot with this bitch. She's acting all superior like this is some sort of gotcha moment because she didn't throw anything, she only threatened violence. Threatening to throw something at someone is still bad. Stomping around, yelling and screaming, and then following them room to room while they're actively trying to get away is still a
During my like crash outs or like fits of betrayal, like when I find out that I was betrayed and things were hid from me, etc., I will say that I'm a yeller. Um, I won't say anything like that, but I yell. Whatever point that I need to make, I go up like 5 octaves, if that makes sense. That's my downfall, I will say. I get loud.
At no point does Amber ever acknowledge that this type of behavior would have been scary and quite threatening for someone in Emily's position, especially given Emily's past history, which Amber has claimed to know about. Even if Amber didn't intend to throw the water bottle, Emily didn't know that. So to me, it's just as bad. And it's disgusting that Amber is justifying her actions here, making it out like this is totally fine because she didn't actually throw anything. And this wasn't the only time that Amber used threats to try to control an argument. Emily also shared that Amber had grabbed a picture of her late fiancé Colleen and had threatened to break it. Emily wrote to Mr. Snowflake saying that Amber then grabbed a picture of her and Colleen and held it up and threatened to break it. She knew that this was something that would hurt her more than anything she could physically do to her. Like, this was the lowest she could go. She later apologized and then tried begging for her back, saying that it was her BPD. At first, she denied that she did any of those things, which that sucked too. In response, Amber came back to, surprisingly, not deny any of this happened.
At first, she denied that she did any of those things, which that sucked too. I've never denied a single thing that I've actually done. I have denied the things that I have not done that you have lied about. I deny what the false is. And I tell the truth on what the real is. Now that's reality.
To me, the omission of Amber trying to deny this accusation that she tried to break this picture of Colleen, followed up by Amber directly saying that she's not denying anything that she actually did, to me, isn't that not indirectly admitting to doing this? I know that Amber has a really hard time admitting to any fault, but this was a really strange workaround even for Amber. And now why would Amber threaten to break a picture of Emily and her late fiancé Colleen? Well, jealousy.
I was very jealous. I'm a very jealous person in relationships. I've been very honest about that. Anytime I talked about Colleen, I made it very clear that I'm very understanding of the whole Colleen situation. But when you would compare me to Colleen in fights, you began to turn that into a weapon. You turned Colleen, this beautiful, caring, kind woman, into a weapon to hurt your current girlfriend. That's when it became weird. That's when it became awkward. Colleen was no longer your late fiance, but a weapon to hurt your current girlfriend. That's not cool, dude.
Instead of showing any sort of compassion or empathy for Emily's grief over her late fiancé, Amber, once again, casts herself as the victim, claiming that Colleen's memory was used as a weapon just to justify Amber's own actions. But threatening to destroy something that is deeply sentimental is a manipulative and cruel way to hurt someone. Amber admits that she is the jealous type, but she uses this as an excuse rather than a flaw that needs to be addressed. Again, she's shifting the blame off of herself, justifying her actions because of what Emily did to her first. You pushed me to this point. Amber has no remorse, no acknowledgement that her actions and behavior were threatening and the combative and dismissive, smug tone that Amber has throughout the live stream only reinforces Emily's account rather than disproving it. And Amber doesn't just stop at using jealousy for an excuse. As we've seen many times now, she leans heavily on her BPD diagnosis as an excuse to skirt any blame. Just a brief interjection here to say thank you guys if you are still watching, and please consider liking and subscribing if you want to see more of this content. It really does help out my channel, and it helps me know what kind of content you guys want to see more of. Also, I now do have memberships, so if you want to support the channel more and see more vloggy type style content and reaction style content, please consider checking out the memberships as well. I would love to see you guys there. But now, back to the video. Now, we've talked a bit about Amber openly admitting to following Emily around and calling it a bad habit. But I want to include a little bit more from Emily's side in how she described this bad habit of Amber's. In one message to Mr. Snowflake, Emily wrote, "It got to the point where I started going into the other room just to sleep because she wouldn't stop arguing with me when I was trying to rest before a shift." And this is how Amber responds.
That happened one time. That happened one time. And it's when everything hit the fan. And I followed you in there with my BPD meltdown, my tantrum. Yeah, I did. I did. And I'm able to admit that. My pain turned me into a monster because of what you did. Yeah, I am able to admit that. And you're not taking accountability for anything, and that's terrifying to me. I'm not done with this video, but I sure hope that you do take accountability.
Amber's response here is extremely manipulative. She's framing her behavior here of following Emily around and not letting her leave an argument or even rest. She's framing that as a BPD meltdown or a tantrum, which she also openly admits to be unmedicated for.
Imagine having BPD, unregulated, unmedicated, and finding out just betrayal. Like, you go crazy. Like, you genuinely go crazy.
Even if Amber does have BPD, it's her responsibility to seek treatment, not just use it as an excuse to hurt others. During the beginning half of her response to Emily, Amber delivers her lines so calmly and dramatically, staring dead into the camera. But her responses don't sound like genuine remorse whatsoever. Instead, all she does is try to justify her actions, again, taking zero real accountability. Notice how she repeated the phrase, "that happened one time," as though she didn't just say in her prior live stream that this was a pattern of behavior.
I have a bad habit of like following, saying, "Don't leave the room, we need to talk about this." Like, that's a very bad part of me that I will say, and I'm 100% accountable in that.
Emily's messages to Mr. Snowflake and her story isn't just about this one isolated incident. Emily and Amber are both describing a pattern of behavior. Amber will not stop arguing even after her partner is trying to get away. But Amber is trying to reframe this as a single isolated incident, calling it a meltdown and trying to minimize the severity. Then, in what might be the single most concise example of DARVO I have ever seen Amber display, Amber says this.
My pain turned me into a monster because of what you did.
Amber denies any of her own wrongdoing, attacks the other person by blaming their actions instead, all while reversing the roles to turn herself into the victim of what the offender did. And this is something that Amber will continue to repeat and rephrase. Everything that Amber did was just a reaction to what Emily did first.
When she betrayed me, I popped off. I became psycho lunatic.
You hurt me, betrayed me, lied to me, deceitful, etc. The list goes on, and you get to play victim over my reaction of the pain that you caused me? When you left that night, you betrayed me and you could not handle the heat. You cannot handle the reaction that I had due to the pain that you caused me.
Amber gets to be a victim of her own behavior because she was in pain. She was the one who suffered so deeply that she had no choice but to just lash out, even though she is the one in control of her own actions. And she is the one deciding to not treat her alleged BPD in any way, in favor of using it as an excuse to hurt the people around her. And even in hindsight, after all the pain she has caused, she can only see herself as the victim. And actually, I believe that Amber now hurts the people around her more now that she has this alleged BPD diagnosis. Whether real or not, or diagnosed or not, I believe that Amber believes that she has BPD. And this belief causes Amber to allow herself to just lash out and let loose because, my BPD. It's just more reason for Amber to do whatever Amber wants to do. And Amber calling Emily terrifying for not taking accountability is Actual lunacy. Amber tries to position herself as the calm, reasonable, and reflective one, while painting Emily as scary and unaccountable. Meanwhile, Amber's flat and rather angry delivery makes this whole rant incredibly uncomfortable to watch. You can just feel the vitriol radiating off of her. And despite the image that I think Amber was initially trying to portray, instead, she came off as just really quite vile. Also, I don't know if this is part of the DARVO technique, but on several occasions, Amber also makes the very well thought out argument of, I know you are, but what am I?
But I'm tired of watching her dodge any real accountability. You are literally the queen of dodging accountability. She creates her own reality and expects everyone to play along. Are we describing you right now? She couldn't keep her normal behavior for too long before her true self came out again. That's you.
I'm sure there are more examples, but one that I really wanted to highlight is one where Amber claims that Emily was never afraid of Amber, and actually it was Amber who was afraid of Emily.
The sad part is most people do because they're either scared of her and don't want to deal with the drama. But I hit a point where I just couldn't sit back and watch her keep rewriting the truth. You are not afraid of me. How many times have I said that I'm afraid of you? You are not afraid of me because you've gotten public behind my... Amberlynn, calm down. I'm about to have a BPD meltdown here on live. Can you imagine? Literally, behind my back, you have said awful things about me. You've done it publicly knowing that I would see it. If you were afraid of me, you would have never done those things. Not only that, if you were afraid of me, you would have never verbally... You wouldn't have verbally me repeatedly to my face, in text, in Messenger, in this, in that, on FaceTime, on the phone. You wouldn't have done those things if you were afraid of me. You're not afraid of me. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Okay, so to get this straight, just because Emily, who is now in a completely different state from Amber, has gone and said bad things about Amber, that must mean that Emily was never afraid of Amber? First off, that doesn't even make sense. As Amber would like to say, two things can be true at once. Emily can feel threatened and scared of Amber's retaliation while also saying mean and nasty things about Amber. And also, this little rant that Amber goes off on was in response to Emily saying to Mr. Snowflake that Amber creates her own reality and expects everyone to play along. The sad part is, most people do because they're either scared of her or don't want to deal with the drama. But I hit a point where I just couldn't sit back and watch her keep rewriting the truth. Nowhere did Emily even say that she was scared of Amber, but it is quite telling to see that Amber was so triggered and quick to defend herself here. And despite Amber quite literally admitting to threatening Emily, admitting to following her from room to room, yelling and screaming, threatening to throw a water bottle at her, all this during her little BPD meltdown, all that, and apparently, no, Emily had nothing to be scared of.
There is nothing to be afraid of. Yes, you could be afraid of a BPD meltdown because those can be kind of hecticana. Not gonna lie about it. But you're not afraid of me. That's just easy for you to say to look like the victim.
So Emily did have something to be afraid of then. And now where I really get frustrated is another attempt from Amber to try to reverse these roles and paint herself as the one feeling threatened and scared of Emily. Amber is claiming that she was the one afraid of Emily, and actually, she was glad when Emily went off to work.
She came into the room and stood over the bed. She told me that if I wasn't going to continue the conversation, which was basically her going on and on of how I didn't love her and all of this crap, then said, fine, if I can't have peace from being able to have this conversation, then you aren't going to either. She would then stand next to the bed I was sleeping in and intentionally keep me up all night. I feel like this happened every time she knew I was going to work, like she was intentionally keeping me up because she didn't like that I wasn't home instead of work. That's a bullshit lie. That's a bullshit lie. I liked when you went to work. Not gonna lie, it was peace from you. I liked having those 2 days a week where I didn't have to be like, oh my God, is she gonna be raging at me? Is there going to be a fat joke?
This actually makes zero sense considering everything else that Amber has already admitted to. Amber was upset that Emily would go off to work and leave her alone. Amber would demand Emily to FaceTime her while she was at work.
So first things first, the FaceTime her for hours every single day. That's true. And I think it's because that is the way that she said, okay. So her and Colleen would be on FaceTime for hours and hours a day. And that is how mine and Emily's relationship started. And it was because she wanted that. So when that became a pattern where it was we were on FaceTime for hours and hours a day, that is what I got used to. And having BPD, I have also very bad anxious attachment where like thankfully, I just want to say I'm very much far gone from that area. I don't have that like anxious attachment feeling anymore. Thank God. It's been like that for months and it feels really good. So I will admit that that's definitely how it was because that's, the pattern that we created together. And when I noticed, sometimes she didn't want to do that, my brain, because it's not wired the same as everyone else's, my brain would tell me she hates me. What did I do wrong? So yeah. She'd take it personally and get upset. Bam. Because that is the way my brain is wired, and that's unfortunate.
Amber was hovering over her bed for attention and blocking her from leaving rooms, for God's sake. But suddenly, Amber's happy to have the house to herself for 2 days a week. And Amber was only supposed to stay there for 2 weeks to begin with. If she really was happier with Emily out of the house, why didn't Amber just, I don't know, leave? Apparently, Amber's mother had even been offering to drive Amber back home.
Like, my mom knows, like, everything. I called her all the time and she was begging me to come home, and I would constantly say I am, and then my mom would schedule to come pick me up. It was like this whole thing.
It's not like she was stuck there. Amber had a place to return to and had means to get there. There was nothing at Emily's house, no obligations or responsibilities that would have been keeping her there. This is actually such a joke and just so disrespectful to actual victims of DV. I'm sorry if it offends you that I'm not siding with the victim, but in this case, the victim is a lying piece of shit who can't take accountability for everything and keeps changing the details to twist things as though she was not the offender here. However, that's not to say that Emily was innocent in all of this, because it sounds like Emily was also a piece of shit during this whole dumpster fire of a relationship. So let's shift gears a bit to talk more about Emily's role in all of this. Because according to Amber, all of her outrage and hissy fits were totally justified. Why? Well, because she was just reacting to Emily's betrayal.
He betrayed me and betrayed. I was betrayed and betrayed.
You betrayed. Betrayed me. You betrayed me.
Betrayal. 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 Betrayal after betrayal after betrayal. 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 There was just a lot of betrayals. That's all I can say. And betrayal is just for the lack of a better word.
The betrayal that Amber is referring to is multifaceted. The most recent betrayal in Amber's mind was Emily going to Mr. Snowflake to tell her side of the story. But the tension between them had been brewing for long before this, and there were many more of these betrayals from Emily before Amber's big crash out. According to Amber, their massive fight on that night that Rarity went missing was triggered because that was the same night that Amber found out that Emily was a shock to absolutely no one except Amber, apparently. Because if you'll remember, all of Amber's audience, as well as her haters and the reaction channels, already knew this information, and they had already been trying to warn Amber of Emily's preferences. But according to Amber, that discovery shocked her.
Okay, so when I first got with her, like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's a feeder, da, da. And I would tell her, like, oh, I don't believe any of that. Like, I would not be with a feeder, like, at all. So she would deny it over and over. So I was in Wisconsin. It was during the night of the big betrayal, like when I found everything. I saw that she was on Phoebe, and that was the site with all the bigger women or whatever. And my jaw was on the floor. Like, why would you have to be on there? But I ended up going in the little message part, and I saw that literally while we were in a relationship, like a month after we started dating, she messaged some girl saying that she was sexy. So that was fun. But she messaged this masked lesbian and said, "Oh, I know how rare it is to be a masked lesbian that's a because so am I." And that is when I found out the truth while in Wisconsin.
So just to remind y'all, this is Amber admitting to having known for the past 9 months or so, the majority of their relationship, that this girl was a fear and a detriment to her health. And yet, Amber chose to not only stay with this person, but to also defend her and to swear up and down to her audience that the rumors were not true.
It is 100% not true. I am not in a feeder relationship. That is not what's happening here.
And so now, apparently months after Amber had already found out that Emily was a fear, now Amber is trying to weaponize that revelation. Like, oh poor Amber, Emily lied to her, when Amber already knew this for the majority of their relationship. She chose to tolerate this thing that she finds unacceptable, to then only later on use it as ammunition against Emily. And yes, Emily wanting to plump up Amber even more with a complete disregard for her health and well-being. That's also very shitty and sick behavior. I don't think I need to say that. But Amber liked the attention. For what she claimed to be the first time in her life, someone liked her for her looks, beyond what Amber claims to be her facial beauty.
People my size are just not accepted in society. We're not like the standard of beautiful. 9 times out of 10, people with my body type are very insecure. We hate what we look like. 9 times out of 10, we're not with a partner who actually really likes our body. We're with a partner who, falls in love with our personality, or it's our eyes, or, it's the cute button nose, or you have such a wonderful heart. I love your laugh. Being around you so fun. But I'm just going to deal with your body because I fell in love with the rest. And finally I got with someone that desired my body, and I've never experienced that before.
And if you look like Amber, I'm sorry, but if you're Amber's size, finding a partner who is genuinely physically attracted to your body is not a typical thing. That is not conventional. It's a very specific and niche interest. And I really find it strange that Amber has always put so much emphasis over her partner valuing her looks and finding her beautiful. And yet, when she finally finds that partner who actually did like her, not just despite her looks, but expressly for them, Amber still couldn't hold that down because of her shit personality. I think that says a lot about the type of person Amber is. And now, despite this comment from Amber that she was loving the attention that she was getting because of the way her body looked, Amber also plays the victim over this, calling herself just a body to Emily.
I thought all she wanted was my body. I was just a body to her.
But Amber, isn't that exactly what you wanted? She admittedly liked the attention, and it seemed like she valued this attention over any flaws that Emily had. However, this would have created a bit of a power dynamic between the two. Amber clearly wanted validation from Emily, someone who was openly attracted to her body, and she probably knew how rare it would be to find. And I think that desperation for attention really opened up Amber to an unhealthy dynamic, one that Emily seems to have recognized and used to her advantage. Emily essentially had leverage over Amber by being someone that was rare for Amber to find. Emily could treat her poorly, insult her, cheat on her, all while knowing that Amber would still cling to her, because Amber probably believed that she wouldn't be able to find anything better. So when we start to talk about all the accusations that Amber has made against Emily, I think it's important that we keep this power dynamic in mind. Yes, I know that Amber is a liar, and even with true events, she will tend to exaggerate or embellish the details. But I do believe that there were nasty things going on in this relationship that flowed both ways. And I think one of the biggest pieces of evidence for this is the discovery of one of Emily's Reddit accounts. Amber has been known to watch all of the reaction channels and stalk the subreddits that are about her. She's even been caught using fake accounts to leave comments across Facebook, YouTube, and Reddit. And it's not surprising to find out that Emily was engaging in this behavior too. However, it was with an entirely different intent. Emily had been using a sock account on Reddit, but she posted an image where there was a message bar at the bottom with her Instagram's profile image, meaning that whoever took this screenshot was logged into Emily's Instagram account.
But what Emily failed to do before sharing these screenshots to Reddit in order to defend her dog was crop out her profile picture at the bottom. Shortly after people noticed this, the post was quickly deleted and Emily goes into damage control mode.
So bing bang boom, and the Reddit account was directly linked to being owned by Emily. And thankfully, the person who first found this out was forward thinking enough to save some screen captures of all the things that Emily's account was posting about Amber before Emily had a chance to delete the account.
She had a whole f***ing Reddit where she made fun of my body. Someone asked on Reddit, how do you think Amberlynn would be when she lost weight? My girlfriend replied, She probably looked like melting ice cream or melted candle. My girlfriend behind my back was calling me Porcahontas.
These insults were coming directly from the comments that had surfaced that were posted by Emily's account. So it's probable that Amber was seeing this secondhand from looking at those Reddit posts, which were all over the front page of the subreddit at the time, which, as I mentioned, Amber has been known to stalk those pages. So I don't think that Emily said those things directly to Amber's face, but Amber finding these things out would still be hurtful, and it's still likely that Emily could have been saying nasty things to Emily face to face as well. Like, for example, Amber accused Emily of telling her that she wanted to knock her teeth in.
I crashed out so many times in Wisconsin due to, like, I have never felt so insane in my life. Emily said it to your face or in text. Which part? Both, though, if you're talking about the cunt. My favorite was when she told me she wants to knock my teeth down my throat. That was my favorite. While we were looking for Rarity in the truck. Yeah, I'll never forget that one. That one was to my face, so you wouldn't be able to see that in text, but yeah, that shut me up real quick. I'll tell you that.
But that was only a threat, right, Amber? Emily didn't actually punch your teeth out, so it's totally fine. Please note that this is heavy sarcasm here. It is never okay to speak to anyone like this, let alone your romantic partner. I'm just trying to point out the hypocrisy, okay? I also want to point out that there was no proof or denial about Amber's claim here. Emily didn't come back saying that this did or did not happen. But a lack of response from Emily does not mean that she's admitting to it either. Just want to make that clear. However, given what Emily has shared about her feelings regarding the night that Rarity went missing, it does lead me to believe that Emily probably did say some nasty things to Amber during that night. According to Amber, the reason for this threat from Emily was because Amber was crying and bawling because they were looking for her poor missing cat Rarity. And Emily was just fed up with Amber. When Emily talked about this frustration with Amber, she claimed that Amber wasn't really helping to find Rarity and was instead preoccupied on her phone rather than at least looking out the truck window or calling for her cat. And she wrote to Mr. Snowflake saying that I would get so pissed when we were driving because she would have her head buried in her phone playing a stupid Farmville type game instead of looking out the damn window for her cat. So I can imagine that some insults and nasty things were exchanged between the two, given the heightened emotions and Emily's admitted frustration with Amber. Another thing that Amber brings up is Emily's constant annoyance with Amber's size. Amber wasn't able to get out and actually physically look for Rarity. She couldn't go in the snow because of her lymphedema. Their drive back to Oklahoma took so long because she had to keep making stops for Amber.
Told her she's going back home. I drove her back home to Oklahoma myself instead of waiting for her mom to come do it. I don't know if why she was so insistent on making it seem like it was her decision, because it was. I drove 19 hours straight though and flew home the next day. It took that long because of all the stops she had to take. Emily, that's part of your kink. The stops we had to take was due to my size. And you loved my size. You loved my legs. You loved my legs. So I don't know why you have to like throw subtle shade when like low-key you love that. So that's cool though.
Given everything that we've talked about with Emily, the insults and the posts on Reddit to make fun of Amber, a lot have speculated that Emily has some sort of humiliation. It's not just that Emily likes Amber's size. Some have speculated that she also gets off on metaphorically kicking Amber down. Oh, and that reminds me, I also wanted to mention one other time that Amber brings up being physically kicked by Emily. According to Amber, there was one incident where Emily allegedly kicked Amber off the sofa and then smirked at her as she struggled to get up.
Did you tell Mama Lynn Emily kicked you? Yeah. And I remembered she's actually kicked me twice. I forgot about the second time. I'm laying in bed trying to sleep, and my brain is like this. Like, insane. I was sitting on the couch one time, again, during one of our arguments, and she wanted me to leave and she wanted me to stop crying. And she was like laying on the couch and I was like sitting like on the end of it. She literally kicked me off the couch and I landed on the floor and I had to I had to have her help me get up. But I'm telling you, in that moment, like, oh, I saw her smirk. You guys, I saw her smirk
at me crying at the fact that I needed help up. I will never forget that moment.
So she'll never forget that moment, but leads with, I forgot about the time when. Already a bit suspect there. Emily did claim that none of this ever happened. I can't remember where Emily said that, so I won't be able to include a screenshot, but I think it was in some text or post or something. Either way, there's no real proof that this did or did not happen, and both of them are very unreliable in my eyes. But one thing that Emily has admitted to, and that we have digital proof of, is of her micro-cheating online. That's what Amber would call it when Emily was caught looking at other women, sliding into their DMs, or commenting on their posts. And this is another thing that I think could play into the whole humiliation kink theory, because Emily was making public comments that Amber would have theoretically been able to see. One of the people that we know Emily was commenting on was this Zio the Dreamer lady on Instagram. She had been in the hospital on an oxygen tank, and Emily was leaving comments on her posts. And I think it may be possible with the timeline of things that this may be the person Amber was referring to, but it could be that she was also talking to someone else.
She saw me scrolling through my phone, and there was this woman on my Instagram feed. She flipped out and said I was micro cheating. The argument escalated really fast. She fucking lied. She saw this woman on my Instagram feed. She won't even admit to the Tumblr. She won't even fucking admit to the Tumblr. When I tell you my jaw is on the floor, can someone pick it up for me? Because I'm too fucking fat. She was on Tumblr looking at naked women bigger than me. Right after having sex with me. And the picture that is so engraved in my brain that made my whole soul leave my body was this woman on an oxygen tank in a hospital bed. My whole soul left my body. And then in that same moment, I find her on Phoebe, which is where the feeders go to do their thing.
Later, Amber would claim that this Tumblr account that was circling around on the farms wasn't Emily's account. And she knows this because Emily told her so, and she believes Emily.
Are you going to address the fact that her Tumblr is full of rosy pics? That's not her Tumblr. She said it's not her Tumblr. I believe it, and it does. Trust me, my happy ass went onto that Tumblr real quick. I know what Emily likes, and a lot of those things that is being shared on there is not what she likes. So, yeah.
So she also brings up that Corky Love Rose was also apparently on Emily's Tumblr or Instagram page, which would make sense because she's another character that Emily has been known to be talking with. And this Corky Love Rose situation is really quite messy as well, with the two of them commenting back and forth on each other's live streams. I don't know what the actual heck is going on there, and I don't know why Amber would be the one to bring up this Tumblr account, only to later claim that the Tumblr account isn't actually Emily's. Maybe it really was a different account. Either way, it sounds like Emily really was talking to a number of other ladies, or at least commenting on their posts, or interacting with their profiles in some way, which would have caused the algorithm to pick up on this and show Emily more of the things that she was looking at and interacting with. The overarching takeaway here is that Amber chose to stay with Emily, all while overlooking all these instances of accused betrayal, only to come out now acting like the victim. And sure, Amber was likely the victim in certain circumstances. We have proof of the name-calling that was going on behind Amber's back. We know that Amber is the jealous type, and in Amber's eyes, it was crossing a boundary to even look at another woman's profile. Not to mention leave comments or even slide into their DMs. But none of that justifies Amber's actions. None of that makes the way that Amber reacted okay. So if we step back and look at everything we know, who was the actual aggressor here? Amber was the one admittedly following Emily room to room, refusing to allow an argument to end or give either of them a chance to cool down. Amber was the one admittedly standing over Emily's bed, keeping her up and trying to continue the argument. Amber was the one who admitted to threatening to throw a water bottle at Emily. Amber also essentially admitted to threatening to break a picture frame which she knew was sentimental to Emily. And Amber's story about this supposed fall and grab onto Emily, but oh wait, that never never happened and the pictures are also fake. That really tells me that Amber also probably intentionally grabbed onto Emily. Those are all really concerning behaviors that really make Amber look like the aggressor in this situation. On top of that, Amber has also admitted that during an argument, Emily would stonewall. She would go silent, almost as though she's trying to de-escalate the situation.
There was a few times where during an argument, she would leave. That's just how she is. She would stonewall or she would leave. And I'm the opposite. I'm very like, let's attack this right now and get this argument done and over with so we can just love each other.
Of course, there are also some pretty bad accusations against Emily. The alleged kicking and smirking, and of course the name calling and cheating, and the little fact that Emily has a habit of helping to feed her partners to death, and probably some sort of humiliation mixed in there too, but that's all just speculation. It's all a fucking mess, and honestly they both sound like horrible partners. It's a toxic relationship both ways. And it's more likely than not that the two of them are still in contact with one another. Also, it's important to note here that a lot of the accusations that are coming up come from that night of the big fight on the same night that Rarity got out. Amber could have just left at that point. In fact, she did leave at one point. So it really bothers me when Amber tries to make these comparisons between herself and actual real DV victims who are actually trapped in their situation. The real reason for Amber's major freakout was not all these betrayals. As we saw, she was willing to put up with this in return for Emily's affection. The real reason Amber is finally done is the reaction channels. And because Emily finally went to the final boss.
Everything that I said that like happened or that she did or whatever, like those things are true. But like those are things that like were old news bear, you know, it's like old news bears, whatever that saying is. Like it's things that like genuinely did happen, but happened, you know, while in Wisconsin and this and that. And it's things that we did move on from. But it's the going on the internet, going on the Reddit, going on the Snowflake, like literally the final boss. Snowflake, title that your next video, because seriously, you were the final boss that like literally broke me.
Amber starts here by saying, you know, these are all things that her and Emily have already gotten over. But if that were really the case, she wouldn't still be holding these things over Emily's head like she's doing now. If they'd actually forgiven each other, she wouldn't be here spilling all this tea and crying over every which way that Emily has traumatized her. In reality, Amber was just lashing out and clinging to anything that would make her still look like the victim in all this. Because Amber knew what actually happened, and she probably knew that she would look like the aggressor. And so once Emily was about to come out and tell her side of the story, she lost it.
Emily's hurting me. The trolls are hurting me. The reaction channels are hurting me. The haters are hurting me. Everyone is hurting me. I am hurt by everyone. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Jordy can kiss my ass too. All these reaction channels want to do is see me miserable.
I hate Snowflake more than anything in this world. And I really hope that he gets some sort of like karma in his life, like genuinely. Because it's not fair.
What's not fair, Amby? That you don't get to keep control of the narrative? That another one of your exes is coming out to say some nasty things about your character? Some things that you don't like to hear? I actually find this behavior from Amber, lashing out at the reaction channels, to be very similar to how some criminals will hold grudges against their arresting officer or judges. A criminal will often hold a great deal of hatred towards the police officer that found that incriminating piece of evidence that led to them being put in jail. They'll often blame the officer for being the reason that they were arrested, the reason that they're in jail, and the cause of their misery. When in reality, we all know that it's not the police officer's fault or the judge or the witnesses. They're just the ones holding the criminal accountable for their own actions. It was the action that the criminal committed that led them to being in jail and the cause of the misery. The crime is the reason for the jail time, not the arresting officer. Similarly, Mr. Snowflake talking to and then posting his conversation with Emily is not actually the reason for Amber's misery around this situation. She's just upset that she's being held accountable for the actions that she did. Her anger is very much misdirected. And so she also makes some jabs at these reaction channels because she's mad. She tells Hecticana to go take care of his kid because I guess you can't have any sort of online presence and also be an adequate parent in Amber's eyes.
Okay, why don't you go take care of your child? Like,
Amber also makes a comment that she thinks that Salty Crab is overweight because of the way that she speaks, and therefore Salty Crab shouldn't be fat shaming.
Being a fat girl myself, I'm able to tell when someone has, some weight on them just based on their voice. But do you guys know what I'm saying? Like, you could just tell when someone also has weight on them. So why make fun of another person's like eating habits if you also have bad eating habits? Like, I don't understand.
At this point, we are so beyond criticizing Amber for her size. Being fat is the smallest of her character flaws at this point.
I do.
Oh, you can't show that you have some type of character flaw that you couldn't shuffle perfect.
No, my character flaw is my fat, okay?
But anytime anyone criticizes Amber or someone has something bad to say about Amber, she always has to point the finger back at them. If she can't deny something, her immediate instinct is to point the finger back and say, yeah, well, you can't take care of your kid. Or Salty Crab's calling me out, but she's fat and stupid. And also, Salty wasn't even talking about Amber's weight or eating habits at all. And all of these attacks that Amber makes on these reaction channels, her obsession with controlling the narrative, and her absolute refusal to take any real accountability, all sounds like traits of a personality type that Amber has been very resistant to admit to.
We both know I'm not a narcissist. Have I thought that in the past? Yes. Have I taken plenty narcissist tests? Yes. Have I talked to therapists? Yes, because genuinely that terrifies me. But you know that I'm not a narcissist. You know that I'm not. You know that. But the behaviors that you demonstrate, whether that be publicly or behind closed doors, shows textbook narcissist behavior. And it scares me. You scare me.
So before we close up today's episode, I want to talk a bit more about Amber's narcissistic tendencies. This comes up very frequently in conversations about Amber because her narcissism shows itself very clearly in the way she talks and the way she acts. And this isn't just about in her relationship with Emily, this is more of an overall sort of pattern. However, even in just this meltdown regarding Emily and the breakup, Amber was very clearly showing some very narcissistic traits. But please remember, we're not going to be making any sort of diagnoses here, we're only making observations. So one thing that Amber likes to bring up, and something that she brought up during this meltdown, is that she can't possibly be a narcissist because she feels empathy.
Narcissists don't feel empathy towards someone, and I feel so much sadness towards Emily because I know Emily and I know her mental health and I know the things that she goes through, and I just feel bad. I just feel bad. I'm allowed to feel that way.
Amber seems to equate feeling bad for someone as empathy, but real empathy often inspires compassion and accountability. If Amber truly empathized with Emily and wasn't a complete narcissist, she should be able to recognize her own role in Emily's pain, and she'd show care for Emily by not publicly humiliating her. Instead, Amber frames Emily's pain as something entirely separate from Amber's own actions, almost like she's observing it from the outside, saying things like, I know she's hurting, all while being the source of that hurt. Like, Amber was just talking Emily a couple live streams ago, but now suddenly she feels all this empathy? Well, I mean, one reason for that is probably because Amber's already back to pining for Emily's affection and hopeful reconciliation, but that's just a theory. Also, a complete lack of empathy is not a quality that's required for narcissism or for narcissistic traits. Narcissism is just a label that we've put on a box of a bunch of different traits, and it exists, like many things, on a spectrum. Many people with narcissistic traits or with narcissism can feel or understand empathy, but that empathy is often self-centered or shallow and selective. And as Hecticona very wisely pointed out in one of his videos, I'll have to link it, I can't remember what video he said this, he pointed out that empathy is not intrinsically a good thing. Stripped to its base form, empathy is just the ability to read emotion. And used in the wrong way, empathy can be a very useful tool for manipulation. So whether or not Amber feels or understands empathy, I don't think is super relevant to the argument of whether or not she has narcissistic traits. And now, beyond the argument of empathy, Amber further uses ChatGPT to ask the question, what is the difference between what she called her BPD rage and meltdown and what everyone else is calling a narc rage? And the answer that Amber got started with this cause or trigger of the meltdown.
The root and the cause and the trigger. Narcissistic rage is 1. Triggered by a blow to their ego or perceived criticism, disrespect, or a threat to their self-image, aka narcissistic injury. Wow, I'm learning a lot. And then BPD meltdown, which is a root cause trigger, triggered by fear of abandonment, feeling rejected, invalidated, biggest one for me, or emotionally overwhelmed. Again, big one. Often linked to intense sensitivity, which is me. Constant sensitivity. So everything on the rage meltdown for the BPD was exactly how I was feeling. And I did not feel, well, I felt the disrespect on the narcissistic side, but obviously like, duh. But it was the BPD, everything I felt that.
The answer that ChatGPT gave, I think that Amber actually falls in both of these categories very well for the trigger. Although Amber very quickly skims past the narcissistic injury as a cause or trigger of a meltdown, I do believe that it makes sense that a blow to her ego was part of the reason for the start of the meltdown. All these betrayals and instances of insults and cheating went right past Amber, and she was able to forgive these things until Emily was gonna go public. Then Amber completely lost her shit because she wasn't able to handle that blow to her ego. In her live streams, Amber took a great deal of time attacking Emily and shifting the blame over to Emily. It was all Emily's fault and Amber was the innocent victim. To me, that's a very narcissistic way to react. Next, Amber also talks about what ChatGPT called the emotional core, which sounded very similar to the explanation for the trigger. But again, Amber clings to blaming the BPD as the cause for all of this.
BPD rage meltdown is driven by emotional pain, me, fear, me, extreme distress, me. It's often a cry for reassurance, like I've said before, connection, like I've said before, or safety, like I've said before. Again, BPD.
It's just really funny to watch Amber say these things while also claiming not to be a narcissist. Like I said, I think she's actually showing sort of both sides here. She can have BPD and also be a narcissist or have narcissistic traits. It's not always one or the other.
Expression of rage. So the narcissistic rage can be cold, calculated, or explosive, often vindictive or intended to punish or control the other person. None of those things are real. None of those things is what happened.
We have been over a lot of content related to this meltdown. And throughout all those live streams, after seeing the way she spoke and acted, you cannot tell me she was not cold, calculated, vindictive, and explosive. She very clearly showed all those traits. Like the way she would stare into the camera dead-eye and then have an emotional crying reaction. And she admitted that she was explosive. She popped off, as she said. It's as though she didn't even remember how she acted just a few days prior.
Focus of rage. Narcissistic rage is: the rage is externalized. The other person is the enemy who must be punished, humiliated, or corrected. The corrected part is true, but the punished, humiliated, the enemy part, none of that is me. I did not think that about Emily at all. But the BPD rage meltdown part says, often internalized as well. They might blame themselves afterward. Me, feel guilt or shame. Literally here, you guys hear me doing it. Or fear of being abandoned because of it. Bam. Wow, we're coming to terms that I'm literally not having a narc rage. It's all BPD rage. Like I said, like I was diagnosed with, and like I experience. Wow. Fifth one, aftermath. So a narcissistic rage aftermath may feel entitled or justified, or often lack remorse, might hold grudges. That is not me at all. You guys see me over here crying because I feel so bad about it.
Amber was absolutely directing her hate at Emily and at the reaction channels and haters. There was no shame, there was no embarrassment for the way she acted, no apology or accountability. To Amber, this is all justified because of what Emily did first. It's really funny to me that Amber would choose to go over these ChatGPT definitions in this live stream after all of that meltdown, because she was so closely matching all these definitions and she just seemed to like fly over her head. The best she can do is just say that those narcissistic traits don't describe her and also claim that everything was because of BPD, and then that proves that then. Like, does she hear herself talk? It was so clearly matching these descriptions, it's actually funny. And look, guys, I can't get into every instance where Amber showed traits of narcissism. That would take us maybe years at this point, honestly. This was just an example to show some of the ways she displayed her narcissism just in this reaction to the Emily meltdown. However, I did come across another video, again by Hecticana, that he posted like 5 months ago, and honestly, I would highly recommend either giving it a watch or a rewatch at this point. The video that he did like 5 months ago was related to when Beck started coming out saying things about Amber, and Amber had had another little meltdown at that time, and also decided to go through the definitions of narcissism. And well, honestly, it's very much deja vu with what is happening now with Emily, or what has happened now with Emily. So if you want to give that a watch, I will link that down in the description below. Anyway, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on Amber's future in the dating world. In my mind, even though I don't think she should be dating, at least until some extensive therapy work has been done, I do believe that Amber is going to find herself in another relationship in the near future if she's not already back with Emily. So I would like to know what you guys think and how you think her next relationship is going to play out. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I really do love reading your guys' comments. That's actually like the best part about posting. So please don't be shy. And until next time, bye. Burp.